Jesse, the body Ventura, accused him of committing the ultimate betrayal.
Last time you spoke to Hulk Hogan?
I don't know. He betrayed me.
Bret, the Hitman Hart, also accused him of trying to sabotage his career.
Can't believe that Hulk Hogan would do this.
Hulk Hogan may be a legend to the fans, but for many wrestlers who shared the ring with him, he's seen as the villain. Here are 10 WWE stars who openly despise him, and their reasons might surprise you. Let's begin with Doink the Clown, also known as Matt Bourne. Behind his colorful, fun-loving persona was a man with real frustrations toward Hogan. Matt Bourne, the original Doink, had problems with Hogan that went far beyond any scripted rivalry. His issues weren't about the storyline, they were about what happened behind the scenes.
I do not have any respect for him to this day. And I would like to like the guy, but I don't have any respect for him. You know? I believe he's not a real person. I think everything's a facade with Hulk Hogan.
Bourne accused Hogan of being fake and treating people badly behind the scenes. He said he couldn't respect Hogan or even look him in the eye because of his hypocrisy. In the wrestling world, respect means everything, and when another wrestler admits they can't even face you because of your behavior, that's a serious statement. Bourne's words implied that Hogan's real personality backstage was completely different from the hero image fans saw on TV, and that contrast deeply bothered those who worked with him closely.
I didn't give a about Hogan. 15 minutes on TV. I didn't care, you know. I never put him over when he was around. I never even went out of my way to talk to him.
The hypocrisy Bourne talked about likely came from Hogan's image as an all-American hero who preached about training, saying prayers and taking vitamins while allegedly acting the complete opposite behind the curtain. For someone like Matt Bourne, who valued honesty even while playing a clown character, this kind of double-faced behavior was especially upsetting. What made his criticism stand out was that Bourne never chased main event spots or big titles with Hogan, so his words didn't come from jealousy or resentment, but from what he saw of Hogan's real personality and attitude toward others. At number 9 is one of the most respected names in WWE history, Bruno Sammartino, the man who carried the company for more than a decade through 2 legendary WWE Championship reigns, totaling over 11 years. Sammartino had no love for Hogan's flashy, cartoon-like style, which he felt pushed real wrestling into the background. And he accused Hogan of using ego-driven backstage politics to keep control of the spotlight. Bruno even refused a Hall of Fame induction until Hogan's era had passed, believing that Hogan's Hollywood persona and entertainment-first approach represented everything that had gone wrong with the wrestling business.
This is the same guy who says that he took wrestling out of the smoke-filled little back alley, whatever he called it, to mainstream. You know, before this idiot, and I'll call him an idiot, came into the scene, there was an Argentino Rocca who was wrestling in Madison Square Garden and all the other bigger...
The most revealing part of Sammartino's dislike for Hogan was his refusal to accept induction into the WWE Hall of Fame, while Hogan remained a major figure in the company. Think about that Bruno Sammartino, the man who helped build WWE into what it became, turned down the company's highest honor simply because he didn't want to be linked to what Hogan stood for. To Bruno, wrestling wasn't just about putting on a show, it was a serious sport that demanded respect. He came from an era where wrestlers were real athletes, known for their toughness and credibility both inside and outside the ring. Hogan's exaggerated persona and limited in-ring ability symbolized a shift away from those values, something Sammartino could never accept.
Talk about the wonderful things he did to this business by being one of the wonderful steroid chemical robots that came to this business, which is an unfortunate and tragic thing because there have been a lot of deaths drug-related.
Bruno's problems with Hogan went far beyond style or presentation. He was especially critical of Hogan's ego-driven politics and how he used his power to stay on top while holding back others who deserved a chance. Coming from someone like Sammartino, who had willingly given up the WWE Championship multiple times to help new stars rise, that criticism carried real weight. His background as an Italian immigrant also shaped his view of what it meant to be a true American hero. Bruno had built his life and career on hard work, honesty, and genuine courage, and when he looked at Hogan, he saw a man pretending to represent those values rather than truly living them. That lack of authenticity deeply bothered him. Given the immense respect Sammartino earned throughout his career, his refusal to share the Hall of Fame with Hogan spoke volumes about Hogan's reputation among his peers. At number 8, we move to one of wrestling's most painful stories of friendship turned into bitter rivalry, Randy Macho Man Savage. Savage's anger toward Hogan came from personal issues involving Miss Elizabeth, accusing Hogan of crossing personal boundaries. Although they reconciled before Savage's passing in 2011, he didn't hold back in the years before, often criticizing Hogan harshly in interviews, and even in his music.
real name is Terry Bollea, my real name is Randy Poffo, and he disrespected me and my family through the media.
The personal issues involving Miss Elizabeth that came between Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan have fueled wrestling rumors for decades. Although the full story was never confirmed, many believed Hogan had crossed certain boundaries with Elizabeth, who was both Savage's real-life wife and his on-screen manager. That suspicion alone was enough to destroy their once strong friendship and create a lasting rift that would follow both men for the rest of their careers.
Here's the situation with me and Hulk Hogan. It's just, we've been acquaintances at best. Never been best friends, never been friends.
The real tragedy of the relationship between Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan was how their massive success together in the late 1980s hid the growing tension between them. As the Megapowers, they created one of WWE's most popular and memorable storylines, but behind the cameras, their friendship was falling apart. The problems weren't about scripted rivalries or on-screen drama. They were rooted in personal issues that slowly turned two of wrestling's biggest stars from close allies into bitter enemies.
The wuss. You see what I'm saying? He goes on the airwaves and he disrespects me. He gives me a shot over the radio, gives me a shot over the TV, he gives me a shot over the internet, here and there, but nothing face to face.
The reconciliation that took place before Randy Savage's death in 2011 added a deeper emotional layer to his story with Hulk Hogan. When Hogan delivered Savage's posthumous WWE Hall of Fame induction speech, his words carried genuine emotion and regret, showing that despite everything, both men had wanted to make peace. Still, the years of anger and mistrust had already done lasting damage. Savage's long refusal to return to WWE was partly due to his issues with Hogan, and their inability to fully mend things during their careers cost both men valuable opportunities and financial gain. Their relationship stands as a cautionary tale of how the wrestling business can destroy even the strongest bonds when ego, pride, and personal issues get in the way. At number 7 is CM Punk, the outspoken straight-edge superstar who never shied away from voicing his opinions about wrestling's biggest icons. Punk openly called Hogan a piece of garbage and even said forget him in interviews, going so far as to reference him negatively in his famous 2011 pipe bomb promo. His dislike only deepened after meeting Hogan in person and hearing about the scandals that surrounded him.
You put Hulk Hogan in the Royal Rumble, I'll throw his dust over the top rope and I'll kill Hulkamania once and for all.
In his famous 2011 pipe bomb promo, CM Punk took a clear shot at Hulk Hogan, using him as an example of everything wrong with WWE's corporate culture and the way the company created and protected its stars. This wasn't just part of the act. Punk was voicing real frustration about how WWE favored legends like Hogan, while overlooking the hard-working wrestlers who were carrying the company in the present. His words reflected the anger of an entire generation of performers who felt held back by a system built to glorify the past, instead of rewarding those earning their place in the spotlight.
As good as kissing Vince's Hulk Hogan was.
What made CM Punk's criticism of Hulk Hogan so powerful was that it came from someone who had no personal rivalry or history with him during his prime years. Punk's dislike grew only after meeting Hogan and learning about his controversies, showing that his opinion came from observing Hogan's behavior and reputation, not from bitterness or jealousy. Punk's straight-edge lifestyle and belief in honesty and integrity clashed completely with what he saw as Hogan's manipulation and dishonesty. The contrast between Punk's commitment to clean living and Hogan's admitted steroid use made Hogan's actions even more offensive in Punk's eyes. His harshest comments also came during some of Hogan's biggest scandals, including the racism controversy, which directly conflicted with Punk's socially conscious and progressive values. And since Punk had already headlined WrestleMania and held the WWE Championship for over 400 days, his words carried real weight. This wasn't a bitter mid-carder lashing out. It was a top star condemning behavior he found unacceptable. At number 6, we have Scott Steiner, the genetically gifted powerhouse whose hatred for Hulk Hogan was as loud and intense as his personality. Steiner publicly called Hogan a racist and far worse in multiple shoot interviews, pointing to moments like Hogan's induction of Randy Savage, someone Steiner claimed despised Hogan, and even alleged confrontations at airports. Their shared history in WCW only fueled his anger, as Steiner said he saw firsthand how Hogan manipulated things backstage to his own advantage. Known for never holding back, Steiner became one of Hogan's most relentless critics, delivering explosive and unapologetic takedowns that left no doubt about how he truly felt.
I beat my first, match after turning heel. The call was made by Hulk Hogan to have me.
Scott Steiner's description of Hulk Hogan as a racist and a piece of trash wasn't just random trash talk. It was a serious accusation from someone who had worked closely with Hogan during some of the most successful yet controversial times in both of their careers. What made Steiner's criticism even more compelling was his claim that Randy Savage also despised Hogan. Given Steiner's close friendship with Savage, he likely knew the real story behind their falling out, which added credibility to his words, the big bad booty. Daddy's anger toward Hogan also came from his own experiences in WCW, where he felt Hogan used his influence to hold control over the main event scene. As a legitimate athlete with real wrestling credentials and unmatched physical ability, Steiner saw Hogan's continued dominance as undeserved and politically driven. His willingness to keep attacking Hogan long after their WCW days showed that his hatred wasn't just about business, it was personal. The fact that Steiner continued calling Hogan out in interviews and shoot videos years later proved that his resentment hadn't faded, and that he truly believed every word of his criticism.
When another wrestler decides he's going to decide who wins is bullshit.
Why do you think he did that?
He's a There's no other way you can say it. He's a piece of shit.
Scott Steiner's claim that Hulk Hogan was a racist turned out to be surprisingly accurate after Hogan's racist comments were exposed in the 2015 leaked tape scandal. This revelation made Steiner's earlier accusations seem far more credible, suggesting that he might have known about Hogan's true attitudes long before the public did. At number 5, we have the Iron Sheik, whose hatred for Hulk Hogan became the stuff of legend thanks to his brutally honest and often wild social media posts. The Sheik frequently targeted Hogan online, calling him out for his massive ego and alleged racism resentments that dated all the way back to their 1984 feud and real-life clashes outside the ring. His dislike for Hogan never faded, and he continued to publicly insult and criticize him right up until his death.
After I lost my belt to him, Mr. Howard, he come in the locker room. He said, "Shiki baby, I love you. I owe you one." And after that, he never returned my call.
The Iron Sheik's famous rants about Hulk Hogan became a regular feature of his social media presence, delivered with the same fiery passion and larger-than-life energy that defined his wrestling persona. Their 1984 feud was meant to launch Hulkamania, with Sheik losing to make Hogan the All-American hero, but behind the curtain, their relationship was far more strained than the simple good versus evil story fans saw on TV. What made the Sheik's hatred so fascinating was how it mixed personal bitterness with professional resentment. His accusations of ego and racism weren't random insults, they came from years of first-hand experience working with and watching Hogan both inside and outside the ring. The social media side of their rivalry was especially entertaining because it showed how old-school grudges had evolved in the modern age. Instead of settling things in the ring, Sheik used Twitter as his battleground, firing off constant verbal attacks that kept their decades-old conflict alive. What made his criticism so believable was his consistency. This wasn't a publicity stunt or a short-term feud. The Iron Sheik's disdain for Hulk Hogan was real, unwavering, and lasted right up until the end of his life. The racist accusations that the Iron Sheik made against Hulk Hogan carried extra weight because of his own background as an Iranian-American wrestler, who had often been portrayed as a villain due to his nationality. Having personally experienced prejudice and stereotyping in the wrestling industry, the Sheik's perspective on racism came from real-life experience, which made his accusations against Hogan even more credible. His hatred also highlighted the complicated relationships that existed during wrestling's territorial era, where performers were often forced to work together despite deep personal grudges. The fact that the animosity between Hogan and the Iron Sheik continued long after both men had retired showed just how real and lasting their conflict truly was. At number 4, we have Jesse the Body Ventura, whose dislike for Hulk Hogan came from what he saw as the ultimate betrayal of wrestler unity. Ventura accused Hogan of snitching to Vince McMahon about his 1986 attempt to form a wrestlers' union, which led to McMahon threatening those involved with termination. Ventura later called Hogan a backstabber and a narcissist in interviews. And in his book, believing that Hogan's actions had ruined any chance wrestlers had of gaining fair treatment and collective power in the business.
I don't like Hulk Hogan himself.
The unionization effort that Jesse Ventura tried to lead in 1986 could have completely changed the wrestling industry, giving wrestlers access to health insurance, retirement plans, and basic worker protections that many still don't have today. Ventura had rallied the locker room before WrestleMania 2, but according to him, Hulk Hogan betrayed that trust by informing Vince McMahon, who then threatened to fire anyone involved. This wasn't just a personal betrayal. It was a move that may have cost every wrestler in the company millions of dollars in long-term benefits and security. Years later, during Ventura's 1991 lawsuit against McMahon over unpaid royalties, court testimony revealed Hogan's alleged role in exposing the union plans. That revelation meant Ventura had lived for years, not knowing that someone he once considered a peer and ally had been the very reason his vision for fair treatment in wrestling had failed.
You and Hulk were once good friends.
Yeah.
What's the likelihood of that ever being repaired?
Never.
Why?
Can't trust him. I'm not friends with anyone I don't trust. I have to have a trust with someone to be their friend. And he's the one that ratted me to Vince when I tried to unionize.
What made Hogan's betrayal so disturbing was the motive behind it. Jesse Ventura revealed that Hogan was earning more money than the entire WrestleMania 3 roster combined. and instead of supporting his fellow wrestlers, he chose to protect his privileged position. While others were struggling without basic benefits or job security, Hogan was thriving financially and actively working against efforts that could have improved conditions for everyone else. For Ventura, this betrayal hit deeply on a personal level. As a former Navy veteran and later a politician, he believed strongly in unity and collective strength. His time working in Hollywood on Predator had also shown him how unions like the Screen Actors Guild helped protect performers, which made Hogan's actions even harder to accept. The long-term effects of that moment were devastating. Professional wrestling remains non-unionized to this day, and many point to this incident as one of the main reasons why. Every wrestler who's gone without health care, struggled in retirement without a pension, or been mistreated by promoters can, in some way, trace those hardships back to Hogan's decision to put himself above everyone else.
I didn't show any emotion, but I almost tipped over in the chair because he was my friend. And I thought, but then I understand why. When we went to court, I saw in WrestleMania 3, Hogan got paid more than all of us combined. Now, why would he want a union when he's getting taken care of?
The fact that Jesse Ventura never reconciled with Hulk Hogan, even decades later, proves how deep the resentment ran. Ventura has continued to criticize Hogan publicly, most recently calling him out for his appearances at political rallies, showing that his anger was never just about a single incident, it was about character. To Ventura, Hogan's betrayal during the unionization effort was something that could never be forgiven. At number 3, we have The Undertaker, whose shocking revelation about Hogan's dishonesty stunned the wrestling world. The Undertaker revealed that in 1991, Hogan falsely claimed to have suffered a serious neck injury from a tombstone piledriver during their match, using the story to avoid losing matches and protect his own image. Undertaker later explained on various podcasts that Hogan's lie deeply hurt him, not just because it questioned his professionalism, but because it destroyed the trust between two top stars. For The Undertaker, it was a clear example of Hogan's habit of prioritizing self-preservation over honesty and respect in the business.
If you start working with WWE again, would you consider burying the hatchet with Hulk Hogan?
No,
Conversation at least?
I don't know.
When was the last time you spoke to Hulk Hogan?
I don't know. He betrayed me.
The Undertaker's revelation about Hulk Hogan's deception stands as one of the most damaging accusations ever made against the Hulkster, largely because it came from one of the most respected and trusted voices in wrestling. When The Undertaker speaks, people in the industry listen, and his story about Hogan's dishonesty carried incredible weight. The incident took place at the 1991 Tuesday in Texas event, during a match that featured a routine tombstone piledriver spot. According to The Undertaker, Hogan falsely claimed to have suffered a serious neck injury from the move as a way to avoid losing and to protect his championship status. For The Undertaker, who was still early in his WWE career and trying to earn credibility as a main event star, this lie felt like a deep betrayal. Having the company's biggest name accuse him of causing an injury could have ruined his reputation and jeopardized his rise to the top, making Hogan's actions not only selfish, but potentially career-altering for one of WWE's future icons.
I didn't know that I was going to drop the belt back and what was going on. I mean, that came up out of nowhere. But I kind of figured like, oh, okay, maybe it's because he's telling everybody that I hurt him, Hulk was still the golden goose at the time.
The 2005 feud between Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan was supposed to be a dream match, a generational clash between two of wrestling's biggest icons. Instead, it became a public showcase of ego, resentment, and frustration. Michaels had agreed to the program on the condition that it would be a multi-match series with each man trading victories, but Hogan reportedly refused to lose, insisting on winning their only encounter at SummerSlam. Feeling disrespected and manipulated, Michaels chose to make a statement the only way he could through his performance. During their match, he exaggerated every move Hogan delivered, dramatically overselling in what many fans interpreted as open mockery. Behind the scenes, Michaels later implied that Hogan's unwillingness to cooperate stemmed from his massive ego and fear of appearing weak next to a younger legend. What made this feud so infamous was how it blurred the lines between storyline and reality. A match that was supposed to celebrate two icons instead exposed just how toxic backstage politics could be when pride and self-interest took center stage. Bret the Hitman, Hart's long-standing feud with Hulk Hogan, remains one of wrestling's most personal and enduring rivalries, built not in the ring, but behind the scenes. Hart has repeatedly called Hogan a phony, accusing him of manipulating creative decisions and sabotaging others' careers to protect his own position. Their tension began after WrestleMania 9, when Hogan allegedly broke his promise to drop the WWF title back to Hart, exposing what Bret saw as Hogan's selfishness and political maneuvering. In his autobiography and interviews, Hart claimed Hogan didn't know a headlock from a headlamp and used his influence in both WWF and OCW to control outcomes in his favor. For Hart, Hogan symbolized everything wrong with the wrestling industry ego, favoritism, and dishonesty, making his criticism not just personal, but a broader condemnation of how power and politics overshadowed talent and integrity in professional wrestling.
Like, Terry, I watched it back. Your head never hit. He was like, well, brother, what it was you had me so tight that when we came down, I had nowhere to move. And that's what jammed my neck, because I couldn't move at all.
You're too tight.
Bret Hart's hatred for Hulk Hogan stands as one of the most detailed and credible condemnations ever made by a fellow wrestler. His criticisms weren't impulsive or rooted in jealousy. They were grounded in years of first-hand experience and careful observation. The infamous WrestleMania 9 incident became the centerpiece of Hart's disdain, symbolizing everything he believed was wrong with Hogan's backstage politics and self-serving mentality. After Hart had battled Yokozuna in a hard-fought match and lost the WWE Championship, Hogan allegedly convinced Vince McMahon to rewrite the ending, inserting himself into the main event to capture the title within minutes. For Hart, this wasn't just about losing a belt, it was about betrayal, ego, and the destruction of storytelling integrity. Hogan's reported promise to later drop the title back to Hart never materialized, reinforcing Bret's view of him as manipulative and untrustworthy. His biting remark that Hogan didn't know a headlock from a headlamp perfectly summed up his belief that Hogan's success came from politics, not talent. Beyond the ring, Hart accused Hogan of deliberately diminishing his reputation by labeling him a tag team guy, a calculated move to weaken Hart's standing as a top single star. To Bret, Hogan wasn't just an overrated performer, he was the embodiment of everything that corrupted professional wrestling from within.
He was a guy that thought he was everything in wrestling and that everyone else was, we were all backup players to Hulk Hogan, and that's the way he saw it. And once that belt was on me, I became the enemy or somebody that had to be removed.
The personal nature of Bret Hart's attacks on Hulk Hogan reflected just how deeply hurt and frustrated the excellence of execution felt over what he viewed as deliberate career sabotage. Coming from someone with Hart's reputation for integrity, professionalism, and unmatched technical skill, these accusations carried tremendous weight within the wrestling world. Hart's issues with Hogan didn't end in WWE. They followed him into WCW, where Hogan's backstage influence once again contributed to Hart's poor booking and diminished status. This proved that Bret's animosity wasn't about isolated incidents, but a long-standing pattern of manipulation and self-interest that spanned multiple promotions and decades. Even long after both men had hung up their boots, Hart's criticism of Hogan never faded, underscoring that this wasn't a simple professional rivalry. It was a deep personal resentment toward a man he believed embodied the worst of wrestling politics. And with that, we've reached the end of this deep dive. For more explosive stories from wrestling's most controversial rivalries, smash that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and check out the video on your screen. Don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments below.